Hey everybody, it's Mom of Two, Wife of One, and welcome back to my channel. You guys, we have finally reached the end of Married at First Sight. It only took us about 5 months to get here, but we finally reached the finale. I want to thank you guys, first of all, very top. Thank you guys so much for following me on this journey, for giving me your feedback, for commenting, for agreeing or disagreeing in the comments, for just watching my videos, for sharing it with other people. It means absolutely the world to me, and I'm so grateful for every single one of you. Even those who watch the video and don't comment, and even those of you who haven't subscribed, I still appreciate all of you greatly, very, very much. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Oh, guys, we've been through a journey with these couples. So actually what I'm going to do, since this was the finale, I'm going to take it back to my first episode of this season. And for those who are just tuning in, first of all, I'm Mama to Wife of One. Nice to meet you. I'm a content creator. I am an influencer, a mommy influencer, wife influencer, woman influencer, if you will. And I like to talk about TV shows, namely Married at First Sight. So Married at First Sight is a show where they, meaning three experts, whose focus is on pastoral counseling, psychology, and then sex psychology, sex therapy. The three experts look through a gaggle of single people, men and women in a different city. This time they were in Boston, Massachusetts. And based off of interviews and home visits, interviewing their families and friends and past lovers, they find 10 singles that they want to match up to be 5 married couples for the show. And the couples, well, the singles are told, we found you a match. You're getting married in 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, they meet their wife or their husband at the altar. Only thing they're able to know about their spouse is their ring size, so they can buy a ring for them, but they know nothing else. They don't know their name, what they look like, nothing. So that's pretty much the premise of the show. And then the show follows them as they get married, as they have their awkward first dance and their awkward photos, as they spend their first night together, as they go on their honeymoon, and then as they come back and live together as husband and wife, and now have to combine their lives with another person who essentially is still a total stranger to them. So after 8 weeks of them being together, but around 5 months of us following the whole thing, we have finally reached the finale where the couples say to the experts whether they want to stay married or whether they want to get a divorce. So the first couple they started with was Michael and Jasmina. Oh, and before I even give my take on everything, I'm on a group chat with 2 of my uncles and my mother and my aunt, and every Wednesday we talk about this show. So last night, because it was such a special deal, because of the finale, we're all on the Zoom call together, live watching it and commenting with each other, which was fun because I'm 40 years old. So imagine me being 40 on a call with everyone who is 65 and up, talking about this show and talking about the people. It's quite hilarious indeed. And it was great to actually see them face to face and hear the real live comments of, what we think about the couples and all that stuff. So all that aside, we started with Michael and Jasmina. Their primary issues, I believe, this season is that, in my opinion, I feel like Jasmina was self-sabotaging the relationship. She just kept saying, I don't feel it from him, and the attraction is there, but I just don't have those feelings. It's kind of a friend thing. And I just felt like she wasn't giving it the proper chance that it needed. I also felt like Michael wasn't being as aggressive as he probably should have been during this process. And so, before each couple said what they said, me and my party, we all made our predictions. I predicted that Michael was definitely going to say yes, and that Jasmina was going to be, I said she had maybe about a 15 to 20% chance of saying yes. Because the thing is, when it comes to making that decision on decision day after these 8 weeks of being married, I feel like the couples are going to look at the situation one of 2 ways. Either they're going to focus on what's been done and make the decision on just those 8 weeks, or they're going to look at the bigger picture and see where their relationship could be and make a decision based off of that. So I feel like if more of them looked at long-reaching goals and what this relationship could look like, what this marriage could possibly be once we get to know each other better, once we continue to let our guards down. They continue to look at the big picture and really see why I was matched with this person in the first place. I think we've had a lot more yeses over the years than we have. So Michael and Jasmina, that's something they had to think about. And there was a really cute story, a funny story about how Michael accidentally in his sleep touched her booty. Now, for those who've been watching the show, Michael and Jasmina, they hold hands occasionally maybe kiss, but it's not there's not a lot of affection there. It's not a lot of intimacy there. They never had sex. It's really like, it seems like he's too afraid to kind of make that move. But I feel like she was waiting for him to make the moves. When he touched her booty in her sleep, she was kind of taken aback, but she wasn't offended. And she didn't say, oh my gosh, I'll never do that again. She was like, oh my gosh, can you believe you touched my butt? So I thought that was a good sign regardless. But in the end, they both decided to stay married. And I like Michael and Jasmina together. I love how silly they are together. I love how comfortable they are with each other. So I've been rooting for them for a very long time. My hope for them for the future is that they'll both get out of their heads. They'll continue to get to know each other, but continue to actually grow closer to each other. The intimacy will grow and improve. The one thing I don't like is that we did discover that after they said yes, they decided we're not going to move in together right away. I'm not a huge proponent of that. I'm not a huge proponent of married people not living in the same house. Now, if you've been married for a very long time, or if you got married later on in life and this is what works for you, that's kind of a different situation, as opposed to two people who just met at the altar 2 months ago. So you're still very, very fresh into this marriage thing. So for you to be that fresh into it, I don't recommend living separately. For me, that just doesn't seem to make sense. I feel like that's a step backward as opposed to a step forward. But each couple also has to make the decision that they feel is best for them. So I guess I can't really knock it, but I wasn't a complete fan of that decision. But my hope for them, again, is that the intimacy will grow, the communication will continue to grow, and they will just grow closer together to the point where they're like, yo, I think I'm falling in love with you. I can't imagine being without you. We have to move in together. I don't want to be separate from you anymore. Really hoping it gets to that point before they have their reunion, which I think is like their 6-month mark. Regardless, they both said yes. So I was like, yes, check for me. I knew they would say yes. Next, we did Katina and Olajuwon. Now, this couple, I know we all have our opinions about Olajuwon. I was hoping, based off of all of his concerns with their timeline and her wanting to, because even his wording is what gets me. Even at decision day, he was like, my concern is that if she decides to become a mom and then she's working and she's in school, she's not going to have time to make me happy. The wording of that bothers me because the fact that that's your concern. Now, granted, actually, let me take that back. Technically, I guess that's a valid concern, that you want to make sure your spouse still makes time for you. And I definitely get that. But it bothers me that it didn't even cross his mind that he would have to make some sacrifices to take some of the burden off of her so that way they can have that time to spend together. And he said something like, yeah, I want to make sure that when I come home at night, my kids can eat and I can eat. It's like, okay, well then why can't you do some meal prep and make sure there's food for your kids to eat if she's too busy to cook, or if she's still learning how to cook? Like, he had this whole thing, because that's been his thing, like, I want a wife who cooks for me. Okay, but at the altar, she made it clear I can cook a couple things, but I normally go out a lot because I'm kind of a food blogger. I take these pictures of food, I go out to eat, I rank these restaurants, all that stuff. She doesn't cook that often. So, of course, she's not like a gourmet thing. And he said at the altar, we'll work it out together. We'll cook together. That doesn't really happen, though. And you can't complain that, the last time she fed me, the food wasn't edible. This is what this man said on decision day. I was like, Olajuwon, shut up. Just shut up. This isn't the time for this. But again, and she said from the beginning that she's not an expert. So if you know that your wife is trying, she is making the effort, she wants to cook for you more because this is what you require of a wife and she wants to make you happy, but the cooking isn't her thing, then you guys either need to A, cook together more, B, you need to teach her how to cook, Or C, another thing he said he's going to do with her is show her how to properly go to the grocery store. Because he mentioned, like, I realize if somebody isn't used to, like, stocking a refrigerator or cooking for a household or whatever, they don't know how to properly grocery shop. I think I need to show her how to do that. But yeah, when y'all went to the grocery store, you had a little itty bitty Carla. You went to a bodega, not an actual store, and all you came away with was a rack of ribs, like some ketchup and some gum or something. Like, you didn't really show her anything. So you can't complain about her not being able to do these things. If they're that important to you, then you would show her how to please you. You would show her how to make you happy, as opposed to complaining about all the stuff she's doing and throwing it in her face. I say all that to say that I felt like, again, Olajuwon, I think he's the kind of person who looks at the big picture. And even though he does not like or care for some of the decisions that she's made, doesn't care for some of the things that she's lacking when it comes to what he believes he wants in a wife, I knew that the big picture was that he genuinely likes this woman. He genuinely has respect for her. He can see how much she cares about him. He can see how much she goes to bat for him. And at the end of the day, all of that outweighs these other things that he believes that he wants. Because those other things he believes that he wants can actually change, and they can actually happen. Even though they're not happening right now, there's still a chance for that part, those areas of her life, to actually grow. So I said from the beginning, Katina is going to say yes. Do I think she should have said yes? No, I think she actually should have said no. But I knew she would say yes. And I think it also depends on who was asked the question first. So Katina was asked first, she said yes. Olajuwon, I felt like there was a 40% chance of him saying yes and a 60% chance of him saying no. But the chance is still a chance, and they both said yes. They both decided to stay married. So in the future, what I want for them, I want them to continue to have conversations. I want them both to continue to compromise. We didn't see a lot on camera, and I got the impression a lot happened off camera, but I really want Katina to continue to hold his feet to the fire, to demand as much from him as he is demanding from her as a wife. I'm hoping that that has happened, even though I feel like she was holding stuff back for the camera, but then when the camera's on her way, she kind of let him have it sometimes. I want her to continue to do that. He needs a woman who is not a pushover, who is going to actively push back. And one thing I like that she did say, because she does want to go back to school, she said, I'm willing to compromise when it comes to having kids, like when we have kids. I'm willing to compromise on that. It doesn't have to happen in 2 years. It's like with my education, I'm not compromising on that. I was like, good for you. I'm glad that you made it very clear up front what your boundaries are. We can have kids at a later date. That's cool. But this education, though, no, this is what I'm going to do. So if you ain't down with that, I don't know what to tell you, because I'm definitely doing this. This is a non-negotiable. So I was glad that she did that. And I hope that she has more of those kind of conversations with him. And the next couple was, and they also finally had sex. After 8 weeks, they had sex on decision day. I was like, finally. And she was like, and it was worth the wait. I was like, okay, sure. We'll say yay. Great for her. I do hope that they go the distance. When people say yes on decision day, whether I agree with their decision or not, I don't want any marriage to end. I don't want any marriage to just be doomed. So I hope that they're successful, and I do hope they go on to be happily ever after. The next couple was Noy and Steve. Now for Noy and Steve, the little things that they had issues with each other, I thought were so minuscule compared to the other couples that I had no doubt in my mind that they would both say yes. That for me, that was a no-brainer. I didn't whiffle waffle back and forth about that. I was like, they're both going to say yes, because they genuinely love each other. They genuinely care about each other. One point of concern for me was the fact that she wanted to live apart from him for the first year or so, and then they were going to live together. And I was like, again, for a newly married couple, I don't think that's the best idea, and I don't think that makes any sense, especially because at some point you're trying to have kids with this person. So how are you planning on having kids, or even trying the process of having children, if you don't live together? Thought that was weird. But at the end, they both said yes, like I knew they would. I was like, I'm 3 for 3 right now. This is great. And he actually kind of re-proposed to her with a really beautiful ring. It was really sweet. She cried like a baby. I was like, aw, woo-woo. Very sweet, very tender moment. And she said, you know, you need to get your apartment ready. You need to get it ready for a wife. You need to get rid of the couch because I don't like the couch. So she's going to move in with him. I was like, look at you. Okay. Changing your mind, turning a corner. Was very proud of Noy in that moment. I was like, okay, that's what I like to hear, that you understand I need to live with my husband in order to continue to nurture this relationship. Good for freaking her. So I'm happy for them. I think they'll continue to do well because he's very, very good at communicating his feelings in a respectful way, but he's very good at communicating. And I feel like because he's so sure of himself and because he definitely protects her when they're talking and just protects her feelings and all that stuff, she is becoming more and more comfortable with expressing herself to him. And that's going to go a long, long way. So I really like them. They're a couple that I've always rooted for as well. So I see good things for them, and I think they'll be okay. Lindsay and Mark. Now, so my early prediction was that Mark was going to say yes and Lindsay was going to say no. And this is why. Someone jokingly said, you know, Mark's going to say yes because he's afraid of Lindsay. I'm not going to assume that's not the case because anything is possible. We don't know what the heck's in Mark's head. But I do think that even though Mark's nickname is Mark the Shark, he's not as much of a shark as he thinks himself to be. I think that persona was in college. Now he is a teddy bear. He is very sweet. He's very empathetic. He's very caring. He's all of those things. But when you have a personality like that, it is very easy for people to take advantage of you. And I feel like that's happened a lot in his life, but he didn't know how to stand up for himself. So Lindsay is the kind of person that he absolutely needs. He needs somebody who's take charge. He needs somebody who's going to get him out of his comfort zone. He needs somebody who has a voice and who's going to have his back and care for him and put his needs first, because he currently does not have that in his life. So I think that Mark has recognized after all this time, after all of the fights and all that stuff, he's recognized that Lindsay is a lot to handle, but she is exactly what I need in my life. As much as she drives me crazy, I can see that all of her good qualities far outweigh some of this bad stuff, and she's what I need. That's why I knew he was going to say yes. Now, for Lindsay, I believe that she was going to say no because as much as she appreciates how nice Mark is and how respectful and how sweet and he cares about everybody and all that good stuff, yes, those are all really good qualities. But when you have such an aggressive, assertive personality like Lindsay has, you need to be with someone who kind of matches your energy. Not completely, because if you have two very, very like kind of people in a relationship, that can cause a lot of friction. That's a lot of fighting. So you don't necessarily need that. But you do need someone who can kind of get to that level with you occasionally. Because Lindsay, as you know, well-meaning as she is, sometimes she needs somebody to put her in her place. And sometimes she needs somebody who is going to rise up for her, right? She's that personality where she's rising up for people. She's sticking up for people. She's telling people, hey, don't mess with my man. Don't do that. Even with the larger ones, she's like, look, don't give away Katina. She's a good girl. Like, she is that personality that she will stand up for you if somebody comes for you. But at the same token, Lindsay deserves to have somebody do that for her too. And honestly, I don't know if Mark is that person. I think his personality is a little too soft for her. I think he also is the kind of person that does not like to ruffle feathers. He does not like to confront people like that. So if someone comes at Lindsay, he kind of takes Lindsay aside and discusses it with her and makes sure she's cool. But he doesn't really rise to the occasion like I believe she deserves and like I believe she needs him to do. But again, I think it was a matter of her looking at the bigger picture, looking at the life that they could possibly have together, and looking at the strides that they have made over the past 8 weeks. Yes, it was very bumpy for a lot of that time, but the end of it, and even the very, very beginning of it, was nice, and it was sweet, and it was good conversation, and there was no arguing, and there was no name calling. It was just us really communicating with each other and understanding each other and listening to each other. I do think they both said yes, by the way. They both decided to stay married. I do think that they both need to continue to have couples therapy and or individual therapy. He still has a lot of stuff that he's dealing with from the damage his mom did, from the death of his dad. He's still dealing with a lot of that residual stuff when it comes to how he communicates with women. And with Lindsay, the damage her mom has done and continues to do with her, she hasn't come to grips with all of that either. So they both need to have their individual therapy like right away to continue to help them to be better people so they can come together and be a better husband and wife to each other. So I think if they seek that professional help, their marriage will go a very long way. But I think if not, a lot of their issues that they've had will just continue to be in a loop, essentially. But I've never hated them necessarily as a couple. I think anything is possible. Because I think back to a few seasons ago where we had Beth and Jamie, and it seemed like most of the time they were on camera, they fought all the time. And it was like, there's no way they're going to say yes. They're both going to say no. They're miserable. And they both end up saying yes. And they're both extremely happy now, still married and living a wonderful life. But it's because a lot of their bigger conversations, I think, happened off camera. So I think once the cameras are gone, things will definitely change. People's guards will be down a little bit because they won't be so focused on how they're coming off on camera. They'll be more focused on, okay, you are my husband, you are my wife. Let's talk this out. Let's figure this out. Let's figure out what kind of marriage we want outside of the show, outside of the experiment. Because we did that. That's great. It's done. Now let's focus on our real life. So I thought it was a good season. There weren't a lot of episodes that were boring. It was like, whew, pins and needles. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. So it actually wasn't bad. And they brought back Alyssa and Chris. Now, for you guys who have not watched the show started with 5 couples. However, by the time they came back from the honeymoon, one of the couples had already decided to get a divorce because that couple had never even spent a night together. They never even exchanged phone numbers, and it was all the girl's fault, all the wife's fault. But apparently she's moving to Texas because she wants a cowboy. She wants a rugged cowboy. Why she thought she would get that in Boston? No idea. But she's moving to Texas to find herself a cowboy, and Chris is living his best life, and he's starting to date again, so it's great. But they came back, and I knew they would come back at the very least for that last hurrah, that last dinner when they all get together to tell each other what they decide on decision day. So I was glad to see all 10 of them together again. Still not a big fan of Alyssa, but she didn't annoy me as much, so I appreciate that. She didn't have any snarky comments, so that was great. But overall, I thought the season was a successful one. And I think the new season, they did 2 seasons a year. So the next season is probably going to start in like August sometime. I don't even know where. Season 15, but I will be tuned in. I'm sure you guys will tune in with me. I'm going to try to have some videos before then. I don't know what they'll be about. I may bring back the movie reviews I should do with my son and the book reviews I would do with my daughter. I don't know. We'll see what kind of stuff I come on here and just yap about. But thank you guys so much for coming on me with this journey, for following these 5 couples, for listening to me, rant and ramble and theorize and hypothesize and, exercise, all that stuff with Married at First Sight. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you, are curious, if this is your first video of mine that you've watched, feel free to go back and look at all the videos for this season so you can feel like you were actually there. You can feel like you were in the midst of all of the drama and the funny times and the sad times. Like, you can just relive the whole season through my videos. I mean, I think that'd be awesome, right? Amazing. But thank you guys again. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I'll see you guys soon.